We are live, new Sprint Ride Option podcast. My name is Andrew Pasquini. Jason Aponte to my right. I still can't do that right after almost a year of podcasting with you. Sprint Ride Option podcast, as I said, part of the Blue Wire Hustle Network. Jason Aponte back from Cleveland, the familiar white wall from behind him. That's honestly, I got very thrown off during our live show because I'm like, why Jason's not in his, I'm assuming your room. There's no white wall. I'm very thrown off. We'll start there. How was Cleveland?
Cleveland was amazing. It's an experience that I'll never forget. The town was electric, very inviting. Everyone was so nice. Got to, do things that I never thought I'd be able to do, like go to the stadium, do the experience type thing. Just a blast, man. I mean, honestly, it was really fun. A lot of work, no sleep. Very, very little sleep, a little bit of partying. I'm not gonna lie. We partied a little while we were there. So, but yeah, it was just an amazing experience. You get to rub elbows with people from the industry, people, regular fans, and it was just a fun time, man. I had a blast.
I'm glad to hear. Did you get a chance to kick the field goals on the field? Did you take that up?
I did not. No.
I needed video of that.
Right. Someone was trying to goat me into it. I think it was our valet guy at the hotel. And he was like, did you go kick field goals? And I was like, no. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
I would have done it. I would have done it, recorded, and called it a pro day because that's pretty much all you have to do.
You would have done it. I was not ready to do it.
So I guess we'll talk about the important thing that happened over the weekend. Jaquiski Tartt, number 26. I like it. I told you earlier, 26 is a cooler looking number than 29. 29, Jaquiski Tartt, very good safety. I love him. 26, Jaquiski Tartt, all pro safety. Just calling my shot now. That's the most important thing I think happened over the weekend. I can't think of anything else.
So Jaquiski was on IG today and he talked about it and he just said it's indicative of a different mindset that he's going to have this year. He had some great seasons at 29, but weren't up to his standards. So, that was his statement on it. Jason Verrett also changed his number as well too. He's going to be wearing number 2.
Oh, what? That's sick.
He's back to 2. Yeah, he's back to 2.
Jason Verrett SRJC. Hang on, let's see if I could find. Is that what number he wore?
I know he wore that in San Diego. If I'm not mistaken,
he wore it. He wore 6 at the junior college, 2 at TCU. So I guess I can't fall back on my Santa Rosa Junior College DBU thing.
Well, that wraps up our podcast. The two only things.
Yeah, that's really only thing that happened. Number changes.
Thank you guys for joining.
Another number change that happened. Trey Lance went from 1 to 5. That's what we forgot, Jason. The draft happened.
The draft.
The NFL draft happened over the weekend. How you doing, Rory? Greetings from Sacramento.
Shout out to Rory. He got deployed right then when he got sent to I think he's in the Navy or something like that. He got sent on draft day, so he was away. So we're thinking about you, Rory. Thank you for tuning in, man.
Thank you, Roy. We appreciate it. So the NFL draft happened. The third pick, a little bit of drama going into it, mainly because of what we were told between the options of Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and it was always Trey Lance. Which Kyle Shanahan, I love him. We have said this plenty of times, but for him to be asked about the Mac Jones and for him to just straight up say, yeah, we didn't start that. We don't know where that started, but we sure as hell weren't going to stop it. That's all I needed to hear from him. It made me feel happy. He's had a lot of very good quotes. Yes, it is Monday. We're still alive. I'm sure everybody else enjoyed their version of that tweet because I thought I was the only one. Obviously, I thought I was the only one who thought of that idea. I wasn't. So I guess we will talk about the draft now. Trey Lance being the third pick in the draft. Your instant reaction, because we were live when that happened. We know what your instant reaction was. Give me your reaction now that we've had 4 days to kind of let it marinate and how we feel.
I'm just a little sad. Our comments aren't as lit up with people who have things to say about Mac Jones anymore. I wonder where they went. I'm sorry. You told me not to troll them. You told me not to troll back or anything.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
That's it. We're done, right? Our comment section isn't as lit as it was these last few weeks because people wanted to try to troll.
As Spider-Man famously said in Family Guy that one time, everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one. Done. We're done talking about that. But it is true. You know, when they talked about the process and they were talking about how, you know, Mac, they were comfortable with the idea of maybe getting Mac and things like that. But it seemed like when Kyle talked about being in Cabo and he got to that beach house and he said, that's what I did there. You know, I sat with film and they walked away, and he called John Lynch and was like, dude, are you ready to draft Trey Lance? And John Lynch said, I always wanted Trey Lance, but I never wanted to make that known to pollute the process. So it goes back to the press conference where John said, hey, I defer to Kyle when it comes to this stuff. And he did. And you know, it was really funny to hear that about Lynch saying, I didn't want to, you know, disrupt the process with my thoughts, but that's who Lynch wanted the entire time himself as well, too, man. And, you know, again, it's so good. I'm glad that coaches, one, dispelling the narrative that Kirk Cousins is his prototypical quarterback. We all thought that that's what was going to change. We just, you know, you and I predicted Justin Fields. Didn't happen. Shout out to Justin Fields. I hope you go to Chicago and you kill it also, by the way. Yeah. But Trey Lance, we're good, honestly. We're good over here on this side with this pick because we always wanted it to be one of those two things. I think we were all just in agreement that we didn't want Mac Jones there. And you know what, man? This offense is going to be insane. You know, we'll talk about who they added on later in the draft. That should only make people more excited. But that dynamic that we were talking about in the offense with the RPO and now having that be something that the quarterback can take and run, Godspeed opposing defenses. Your hands are full now.
And I've seen people say like, oh, expect Shanahan to use Trey Lance like Taysom Hill. And like, I get the spirit of the idea. They're not going to use him as Taysom Hill, though. I think what people are getting mixed up because like Taysom Hill's value, like the comparison there is like, you can kind of do a little bit of everything with him, which is true. Like I'm not going to everybody knows I'm not a big Taysom Hill guy, but like, it's true. You could use him. I think what people are trying to say is they're trying to like simple down that argument because there is going to be, if Jimmy Garoppolo is there week 1, which it feels like he is at this point, that could change. There's going to be Trey Lance packages. And they're not going to be like Taysom Hill where he's going to line up at tight end and he's going to line up. They're going to be like, dare I say, McKinnon in the Wildcat, where he's lined up as the quarterback. Even fancy things, maybe even split Garoppolo out wide, do some motion behind the line, you know, things like that. I think that's perfect right now. Like to me, in a perfect world, Trey Lance is your week 1 starter.
Yep.
And that's only because I'm not trying to say Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. That's still yet to be decided. It's just more of you can save $24 million by not having Garoppolo on the roster and maybe make a trade for certain players that might be like things like that. Not even necessarily a trade because the Niners don't have a ton of draft capital to move right now. But just having that cap savings to me would be the biggest benefit of Trey Lance starting at quarterback. But I think the Trey Lance pick is really telling that I think they're telling the truth about Garoppolo being the week 1 starter. And that's okay. Like that's what I've said since the start is hey, Jimmy Garoppolo being your week 1 starter is not the worst thing. There's worse places to be. What Trey Lance excites me about, and I think Mina Kimes tweeted about it, is you get the best run designer in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan and get him a quarterback who can move. And that's a terrifying thought. I am really excited for Trey Lance. And I've watched, you know, just full disclosure for everybody, you know, I haven't watched everything on Trey Lance. I'm really excited to dive into the tape on not just Trey Lance, but also everybody else the Niners drafted because I want to know. I'm not a big, you know everybody in the draft. I just want to know who the Niners draft and I'll focus on them. And I will have way more thought out thoughts. Sentence.
Yeah. No, yeah, that works.
I'll have more thought out thoughts about Trey Lance in the future when I actually dive into the tape more. But for me, man, like if we're doing draft grades, because draft grades are the best at this time because they've all played a bunch of NFL snaps, A+. Yeah. Every pick in my mind is an A+. Until it's not. But yeah, like moving up, trading 2 first round picks to go get Trey Lance. That should be enough to say, hey, this is our guy to be the starter week 1. But I love the pick. Like, I guess I've really just talked in circles here. I love the pick.
Yeah.
I think you couldn't go wrong with either Fields or Lance.
Right.
And
I think
they went Lance.
No, you're right. And I think those packages that you were talking about, they're not going to be like Taysom Hill. Let me point you back to when Colin Kaepernick would come in for a run play while Alex Smith was the quarterback, that type of thing.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Right. And if that's the case, then that means that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here. So let's just operate under the assumption that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here week 1 starter, which isn't the worst thing in the world, right? You know, we kind of talked about how we thought that he would be the guy that's going to be there, even if I alluded to the idea that I thought that maybe he would be traded on day 2. I think the Teddy Bridgewater trade really, really took away any sort of compensation that they were looking for, because if Teddy is fetching a 6th and Jimmy Garoppolo is in a similar tier, you're not going to get anywhere near that 2nd that you shoveled out or that 1st round that was being rumored, right? But when we talk about how they can use Trey Lance in the beginning, if they don't want to throw him, you know, right in, is those Kaepernick sort of packages where it's just straight up jet sweeps and let him find the hole and get to it, things like that. I'm not completely against that, but I'm with you on the idea that I think Trey Lance should start day 1. You know, here's my thing: everybody has issues with his experience and him not playing in the last year. So it kind of is weird to me when I hear people say he needs to sit. He's already sitting. Do you want him to learn, or do you want him to just sit more? So my thing is when we talk about the simplified offense that Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard have been running for the last 1.5 to 2 years, Trey Lance can operate that easily, especially when they consider that, you know, when we talk about some of these other draft picks down the line, it's clear what the 49ers want to do with the football. They're going to run the ball 45, 50 times at you and Godspeed to you trying to stop that. So, again, this isn't going to be something where they're going to make Trey Lance become a pocket passer or somebody who's going to have to go down the field 40, 50 times, right? So even if he does start day 1, Kyle will insulate him with everything he needs. Also, when you look at the history of guys taken as highly as him, they pretty much tend to start, if not right away, within like week 6 or 7. So I would expect to see Trey Lance, if not day 1, sooner than later, honestly. But then that all really depends on what you can get for Jimmy Garoppolo at this point, who, by the way, man, if that story is true, that was put out about him being the first person to text Trey Lance, kudos to you and good on you, man. Classy move as well, man. I understand that could be upsetting because, you know, nobody wants to be replaced, but I got to give you respect for that, man. I really do, honestly. So when it comes to Trey, man, this pick is the future pick. This is the one that really gets to me. Trey Lance turns 21 next week. Yeah. It's very feasible that by the time that they pick up his 5th-year option, he'll be 25. Crazy. That means he can be here for 10 more years after that. Like, it's so insane when you start to think about what they've done and how young Trey Lance is. Under center, play action, everything that you want with the running. Honestly, man, this is an amazing pick. I love Trey Lance, and I'm so happy for this, honestly.
Yeah, and one of the things you kind of touched on too is, you know, the how little he played in college. You know, you talked about that real quick, and the jump to the NFL. And as I said, I'm gonna really dive into the Lance tape here in maybe the next week or two. And I was kind of organizing things. He played the North Dakota State played 16 games in 20 last
19.
year that we didn't have COVID, whatever year, 2019. They all just blend together. Right. That, like, in a normal college that doesn't, like, if he played at a D1, that's a 1.5 years of games because you usually play 12 games, 13 if you're on a really good one. Like, I just kind of expected there not to be a lot about with him because everybody was like, hey, he hasn't played a lot, which, yes, in a vacuum he hasn't, but 16 games is a lot. That's a lot of college tape, I think. And yeah, sure, he didn't play the top schools in the nation. He did play UC Davis, which is a top 5 FCS school. You know, we don't talk about UC Davis enough. I only know about them because I live near them. So I don't know. I think that is a little more blown out of proportion than it should be. Just looking at how many games he did play. I understand the fear of him coming from North Dakota State into the NFL. I get that, but every quarterback's a different basis. It's a different thing case to case. And I really think he has the size to play in the NFL. I think he has the skill set to play in the NFL. And I personally, I want him to be the week 1 starter, but I understand if he's not.
Also, can I just spell one more narrative?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's just spell all the narratives.
All right. I understand everybody's assumption that Kyle Shanahan's playbook is complicated. I think we've talked about on this podcast that the concepts are concepts that everyone runs. What's complicated is the verbiage. And Trey Lance ran all of those same similar Shanahan concepts in the run game, in the RPO game, in the play action game. So honestly, Trey Lance must have blown them away with their interview process on what he could learn. I think there was an RG3. RG3 was out there, I think, on Bleacher Report doing the draft, right? Yeah. And they asked him about what happened in the first year with the Shanahans, right? And it really, that one really dispelled the narrative that RG3 and the Shanahans didn't get along.
Mm-hmm.
When he talked about what they did for him in the beginning, it was, okay, can you memorize all these plays? Can you get through the verbiage? Can you get through it all? And I think what I read somewhere, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, is that Trey's already picking this up after having the playbook for 2 days. I mean, honestly, Kyle wouldn't have went to him if he wasn't this smart, let alone the physical attributes. I don't think it's overstated that it's a little bit too complicated for Trey Lance to get together. And I don't think that that's the case. So in that case, he's run all of those same concepts. He just needs to catch up with the verbiage. I feel like this offense and this team is going to be in on him because he is a good kid so far from all reports and everything indicating. So I just don't think that. I think it's a little bit overstated about needing to pick up the playbook, needing to sit. You know, I don't know if that's the case, but I think it's way closer than people think. It's not something that's foreign, absolutely, to him.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is too is like if you want to believe what Shanahan said, where he said, "Yeah, Lance was the guy since January." That's all you need to know because, I mean, he probably didn't know much about, or he probably didn't know much personally about Lance in January because of the COVID rules. You can't see him. And then he goes and sees him for pro days and all that stuff. And he continues it, right? They trade up to get Lance. They select Lance third. Obviously, there's something about Trey Lance that Kyle Shanahan likes. And listen, I know we like to talk about CJ Beathard, and he didn't have Watson and Mahomes on his board because of Cousins and all that stuff. But he to me, he hasn't shown that we shouldn't trust him in his analysis of quarterbacks because they did go out and get Garoppolo. He did turn Garoppolo into a Super Bowl quarterback. Yes, I know Garoppolo isn't the reason they went to the Super Bowl, but you can't say Garoppolo didn't play a part. He didn't play a decent chunk of it. And a lot of that, I think, is Shanahan. So, yes, the worries of he's going to have to learn these things. Kyle Shanahan will have a way to find out exactly how to get Trey Lance to understand everything he needs to understand in a way Trey Lance will understand. So, like, I'm just really not worried. And I would be saying these same things if the pick was Justin Fields, if it was Mac Jones, because I trust Kyle Shanahan to that level with any quarterback you want to give him. Like he got a 7-9 season out of a year I can't. God, this
Major
is
League.
embarrassing. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Majority of the year was led by Nick Mullins. There we go. I got the sentence out. So, like, I'm not too worried about it. I'm really not. As I said, I think the biggest question is going to be when Lance is the starter, not if. And that's really my thing. Yeah,
honestly, I think we've kind of touched on everything. We've gone for about 15 minutes on it. I think that we love the pick and we're ready to go. Honestly, this is it's an exciting time for 49ers fans. I think the timeline took a big sigh of relief. Like, I think I heard it all the way in Cleveland, just when the pick was not Mac and everything just turned out. So I'm ready to go. Let's go with Trey and let's roll, honestly. And then the rest of this draft was really indicative of what the plans are. So if you want to continue on to the next guy.
Yes. So, Jason, what do you do when you draft a franchise quarterback? You help with his offensive line. And something I've said even before the draft, I'm not worried about left tackle. I'm not worried about left guard. I'm not even worried about right tackle. That makes me a hipster, apparently, because I like Mike McGlinchey. I said the two positions on the Niners offensive line we need to worry about is center because of the fluctuation of injuries, and we're really not sure, and the right guard because they just didn't have anybody that was working well at the right guard. So what do the Niners do? They go get Alex Mack. Center is addressed. Then they trade back from 43. At the 48th pick, they get offensive guard, Aaron Banks. Akash, he posted the depth chart. He had him listed as the starter. So if that's the case, and Akash has never given me a reason not to believe him on this type of stuff. The 49ers go get their right guard. And if they think this is the guy, and I'm not going to sit here and say I know Aaron Banks because I really don't. If they think he's the guy, the offensive line should be set for 2021.
Absolutely. And there is a world where he starts over Daniel Brunskill. And I love Daniel Brunskill for what he's done.
Brunskill too, yeah.
We all talk about his versatility and, he is versatile. But, like I said, last year, I think it was a detriment to him that he had to bounce from guard to center because those are two completely, even if they're right next to each other, two completely different things, honestly. So now, look, Daniel Brunskill is fine. But honestly, you don't move and get somebody in the second round if you're not going to start them, especially somebody who's 6'5", 320 pounds, an amazing athlete, somebody who fits exactly what they want to do. If you didn't think that not only one, that this team is ready to take care and protect Trey Lance,
Yeah.
2, I think this pick shows you that they're trying to get straight back into bully ball mode. Like straight up, it's just going to be 35, 40 runs and good luck at trying to stop all this. And Aaron Banks fits that, man. You know, the only ticks on him would be pass pro. But again, when you bring a guy in for a certain reason, you don't dwell on the other things that he doesn't do well, right? So, you know, that's why you have to figure out ways to get the ball out, different ways, if just in case he does struggle on those things. But he's a fit. He can be somebody who can probably play day one and be fine. And honestly, when you listen to Kyle Shanahan after with his press conference with John Lynch, injuries, and depth. They do not want to see a repeat of what happened last year. No. I know it's not the sexiest pick. There were a lot of skill position players on the board, but this was absolutely the right thing to do at this point when you really think about what this team wants to do and how you want to avoid the catastrophe of injuries that happened last year. So you stop that from happening and you move forward in the right direction. At first, I was like, oh, well, let me take a look. And when I took a look, I understood the pick and I get it now. Aaron Banks, great pick. Another gold domer, probably be right next to his gold domer friend, Mike McGlinchey, which should help a little bit just based on, you know, the things that they know. You know, the Notre Dame people are smart people. They're very smart people. That's why you have to, you go to Notre Dame. If you don't have that high grade point average, you can't play. So he's a smart kid. He fits in with the scheme. I love this pick, honestly.
Yeah. And everything I've read about Banks is he's a pretty solid run blocker. And something that I like Shanahan has set up now is the left side is very, very good pass blockers. You know, we know Trent Williams, like, and Tomlinson's pretty good. And now on the right side, you have very, very good run blockers. I don't know what that means. I like it. I like it though. That's something like, I don't know the benefit of it, but like when I build my team on Madden, I always have blind side be the pass side and not blind side, the side the quarterback's facing being the run side. Listen, we know how much Shanahan really, really likes to run the ball, so this really makes sense. And Jesse says he's also good in pass protection. So, like, if that's the case where he's good at pass and run protection, you know, pass protection and run blocking, and that clicks in the NFL, then yeah, this is a very good pick. The thing I really like about him is the size. He's big, 6'5", 320. You mentioned him. You need that size in the NFL. You really, really do. And that's why a lot of people, you know, question McGlinchey's skills when he lost all the weight, is like, you need that size. And, you know, everything I've read about Banks so far, this feels like a very good pick. And if you can get a guy in a second round where you're sitting there saying, yeah, he's probably going to be the starter. We got the Rock says, Jason's got the Rock shirt on. You know,
that's
Jason
my guy,
Flexen,
man. That's my guy, man. I love him. That's a top 3 account on 49ers Twitter. I promise you.
The Rock says, you know, we all love Dwayne. Yeah, but back to the point. If you can get a guy in the second round where you're like, yeah, he's probably going to start week 1, you got to be feeling pretty good about the pick.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, again, you know, get McGlinchey somebody that's close to him, you know, and what I meant about pass pro being an issue is just not that it's an issue, is that I think that was some of the concerns. I have to double check and look at that or whatever. I mean, I haven't really dug into his tape either, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I know him or anything like that. So, I mean, you guys could be right in the comments about that, but I just have to double check on that. I know that he doesn't give up a lot of sacks or anything like that, but I thought I heard people saying that was one of the things that he struggled with. And then that why some people believe that this was a reach of a pick. Obviously, if we pulled receipts on what everybody thought, we'd have so many things to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I want to double check and take a look. And yeah, I should have a better feeling of him when I get a chance to sit there and actually watch him play football.
Yeah, no, and as I said too, like I'm on the same boat. Like I'm gonna watch these guys more now that I know they're Niners, because like my thing is with watching all the tape of all the guys is I'm gonna watch a lot of guys who aren't Niners, and I need to know the Niners. Right. But everything I've read about him, because like I've obviously read a little bit on the back end of this stuff, is reading. I don't know. This just feels like a good pick, and we'll see. There wasn't a lot of complaints about this pick from the media and all that, so feels good. The next pick, if we're done with Banks. Yep. The Niners trade up, I believe. They traded up to get another Trey. And in case you're wondering, you know, how much I typically know drafts, I know a lot of the top end first round guys. Second day is where I get really lost. So I get excited when my team drafts a name I recognize in the third round. And that's Trey Sermon. And there we go. Jesse Rodriguez. He's a Notre Dame fan. He's been watching Banks since he took over for Nelson. And we're going to love him. So that's good. But the Niners select Trey Sermon with the 88th pick. And this just feels like a Shanahan pick. A lot of people like his ability as a receiver as well. Jason's raising his hand. We'll let Jason have the floor.
Can I rant a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, Jason, we have a podcast. That's what we do.
Okay. I'm tired of everybody who yelled at me on the internet because I wanted Javonte Williams at 43. Because Shanahan never drafts anyone. Yours are undrafted free agents. Are you sure? Are you sure? Man. Are you sure? Okay. Now, here's why this makes sense. And you absolutely had to do this. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, not under contract. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, both injured all the time. Trey Sermon, 4 years, no cost, and he's a stud. I understand he tore his ACL. That's fine. You can bounce back from that, but he was fine last year. Guys, remember 330 yards in a game? I just want to dispel another narrative. Kyle Shanahan values the position. Just because he hit on undrafted free agent Matt Breida, and remember, Raheem Mostert wasn't even his signing. That was Chip Kelly's signing. Just because that happened, stop acting like that was never on the board at 43 or where it was at, because I knew for a fact they had to address that. I know a lot of people want a wide receiver address, and we'll get to it because they did. They just didn't address it in the draft. But this had to happen. You had to take a running back in this draft. As no matter, the running backs don't matter crowd was punching the air, but from a team construction standpoint and how loaded this team was at all the other positions, this had to happen. And getting Trey Sermon there, when they drafted, when Javonte Williams got taken by Denver and they moved up, I was furious. But Trey Sermon being there right there at that point, honestly, this pick is perfect, knocks it out of the park. You've got a guy who's going to be one of your bell cows because let's face it, we love Raheem Mostert, we love what he brings. He's more of an 8 to 10 touch guy. Jeff Wilson is somebody who spells somebody. This feels like a 15, 16, 17 touch a game guy. And when you're talking about Trey to Trey with Debo running across, good God, man, watch out, league. Honestly, this was an amazing pick. I don't care what the running backs doesn't matter crowd has to say about it.
Yeah, and I lean heavily on that running back doesn't matter. Why are you drafting a third or wasting? You're not wasting, but using a third round pick on a running back. But the thing is like we know Shanahan's ability to get that production out of. Like, as I said, like one of the running jokes we had when we first started this podcast, and the fact that like we've had this podcast so long that we had a running joke and we don't even use it anymore is insane to me. But like Kyle Shanahan can get 3 yards of carry from my dad if you put him back there. So if Kyle Shanahan feels the need to trade up to get a running back, you got to feel pretty good. And Trey Sermon, as I said, he's a name that people know. He's an Ohio State running back. Ohio State has, if we want to play the game of, what quarterbacks has Ohio State had? They've been pretty successful with running backs. Carlos Hyde, he hasn't been like amazing, but he's been a serviceable NFL running back. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm forgetting people too. Even going back to not Willis McGahee. Who's the other running back?
Clint Portis.
Clint Portis is one. Yeah, he's one.
But Mike Shanahan took him. You talking about Ohio State running back?
Yeah. Who's the other one?
Ezekiel Elliott?
Is it not Ezekiel? He was another. He had trouble. I'm forgetting the name. We can Google this. But anyways, if back to the point, if Kyle Shanahan feels like he needs to
J.K.
trade,
Dobbins?
Who? Not J.K. Dobbins, but J.K. Dobbins is another example. He's out of that.
Eddie George?
Maurice Claret was the one I was thinking of, which doesn't work at all.
We ran the gamut of Ohio State running backs. Maurice Claret, there it is, Jesse. You got
Beanie Wells is another. Eddie George. Like they've had very, very good running backs. Going all the way back to Archie Griffin. I just ran through a list of top Ohio State running backs. Archie Griffin doesn't really work here. He does, but he doesn't. But like as I said, the point is Shanahan felt the need to trade up to get this running back. Obviously, he sees something there. Something there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. Trust Shanahan, right? And I knew that they had to address the position. Like I said, it's too thin. You don't know what's going to happen with Mostert and Wilson next year. And you definitely can't just go into next year with nobody on the roster that can start and fill in right away. And that's what Trey Sermon can do. And they also addressed it later on, which we'll get to. So do you want to move on to the next one? We'll
move on to the next one. The 102nd pick in the draft, round 3, Ambry Thomas. They go the other side of that rivalry. He did not play in 2020. As Jason has laid out there, now it's gone. Jason, I know you know a little bit more on Ambry. I'll let you talk.
Yeah, 6 foot, 191. Didn't play last year. It's just going to be more depth. And we've talked about this, right? So if Jason Verrett goes down, God help the secondary at this point. There are free agents that can be signed. Casey Hayward, Richard Sherman. Don't knock that one out of the way, honestly. I mean, as much as that sounds like it didn't want to work before, now, honestly, that might be something that, they look back on and they want to do. So look, if Veretz gets hurt, then it's, we love Emmanuel Mosley, but then it gets really thin. Tim Harris, Dante Johnson, so you needed to bring somebody in who was going to be at least able to contribute right away. And when you're talking about what is it, a round 3 pick, round 3, 102? I mean, that's not peanuts, honestly. You invested into this, and 6 foot 181. I think that this is a pick for depth and somebody who can contribute right away, just in case, God forbid, the injury bug strikes. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about him because, again, 2019's film is, college film is the hardest thing to track down. All 22 film, not the YouTube stuff, not highlights, all 22. It's like the hardest thing to track down, and you need to like pull it in together. So I'm trying to piece all this together from different places. Haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but from all accounts, everything that everybody says is a good pick, and it's definitely good for depth, honestly, because this team does need corner help. They're really good at safety. Ward, Tart, Harris, Moore. You're good. That's 4 right there off the bat. And Tony Jefferson still hasn't come in and signed. That's 5 right there that you have that can step in and play right away. At corner, it gets a little hairy. They needed to address it. I like it here at round 3. Let's just hope that the kid pans out.
Yeah, and something too, I believe I heard, and I could be wrong, is Ambry Thomas is pretty good in the return game as well.
I don't know. Is that
a thing? So in college, he had 39 kick returns for an average 2017, a kick return average of 19.8 and a kick return average of 21.7. So that's
expensive. Yep, special teams. Yep.
He had a 99-yard return against Notre Dame as well. So that's another way they could use him. That's an issue the Niners have had. The rotation of Richie James, Trent Taylor, Dante Pettis haven't really worked. So maybe another way to look at this pick too is, hey, he's a cornerback depth, but they also need help in the return game. And I mean, we've seen, obviously, I'm not saying Ambry Thomas is going to be this type of player, but we see how important game breakers at kick returns are with Devin Hester and Dante Hall and all those guys. Tyreek Hill, I'm not saying he's going to be that level, but if you can hit on, because you never know. Like I don't think you could ever really comfortably say, hey, this guy's going to be an NFL return man. But if you hit on one, really can change the look of a lot of things. So that's another thing as well. So
right. And
something to touch on.
No, you're right. And last year we saw them switch away from straight up just zone to a lot more man, and Ambry Thomas actually comps better to that as well. So let's see what D'Amico Ryans decides to do with him if he does start, or if he does play. But the kick returning aspect is something that's been lost. You're absolutely right. River Craycraft, fair catching a punt when there's like 30 yards in between, him and the next guy,
What game was that? I forgot.
It was either Arizona or Seattle. They were playing in Arizona. I just don't know if they were playing Arizona or Seattle in that game.
So yeah, so return is definitely the Niners needed. I think that's fair.
We missed another one. I got to learn how to say his name though. Well, first it's we're gonna go to this one. Jalen Moore is next. So
Jalen Moore, yeah, and so this is where I start to be like, hey, Jason, tell me what you know.
So again, I mean, if you're gonna get a quarterback, make sure you insulate him with all of the offensive line that you can help. He's a former high school tight end who converted to tackle in college. And he's a little bit more of a developmental player, but he's good with his own scheme. Again, depth is wealth, honestly, at this point. When you're talking about there's a possibility that Banks is going to start and Daniel Brunskill's behind him, that's depth because Daniel Brunskill was a starter last year and performed as such at 2 different positions. So again, Kyle Shanahan understands what he wants to do with his quarterback and what he wants to do for the future, and also does not want a repeat of last year. Again, if it takes him a year or 2 to get going, that's fine. You have enough depth on this team. Remember, Tom Compton's back. So, there's another guy that you can throw your hat into with that as well. So, that was me being silly as well, too. I don't know if you guys, could get, if you got the sarcasm coming out of that. But, yeah, Jalen Moore profiles more of as a developmental pick. But, again, yes. Depth is wealth, honestly, at this point, and you need depth at offensive line, as we saw last year. So, yeah, I mean, again, if they see something they like, they've been pretty good at identifying linemen that either in the draft that they like or, from undrafted free agency and things like that. So, yeah, Jalen Moore, that's pretty much all I got, honestly, with him.
Yeah, and I think he's actually – ESPN has him listed as a tackle, Lee. So, I think he's a tackle. But yes. They also have him listed as a guard in the picture. I don't know. Right. It says Moore is a former high school tight end who converted to tackle in college. He has the ability to be an interesting developmental project in the 49ers wide zone scheme, and there's no rush to get him on the field right away with Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey in place tackle. If Moore proves more ready than expected, he could push for the swing
tackle
tackle role. And that is, let's give it credit, Nick Wagner for ESPN. He wrote that. So that's that pick. As I said, we're going to get probably a little quicker. Are you ready for this, Jason?
Yeah. So I think I missed one.
Lenore.
I missed that one, honestly. So let me type that one up. You started up.
Diamador Lenore, he was the pick at 107, a defensive back out of Oregon. Actually, we should have looked at this beforehand. The 49ers on their website have golden nuggets, as they say on this website. His name is pronounced as Diamador Lenore. So there you go. His nickname is Demo. Comes from a large family, as he is the 9th child of 12. Grew up in a hardworking family that always stressed education with 2 working parents. He maintained a 3.5 GPA in high school and is devoted to his religion. His attributes and he attributes his aspirations to his upbringing and community. Quote, growing up in South Los Angeles taught me a lot. It taught me to stay focused in order to be able to go where I want to go, and that's to the NFL. You have to stay in the classroom and do what you're told to do. That's Lenore as Jason. Did I stall enough to get you to type that?
Yeah, I mean, I typed it. I typed his name and stuff, but
perfect.
I mean, honestly, again, cornerback, you need to address it. Again, this is another good pick. Honestly, do we know his measurables or anything like that? No, didn't miss any games. Athletic, might be able to be option. Long-term, play nickel and maybe even safety. So again, K'Wan Williams is here for a year. And who knows? That feels like that he's going to be a spot there, for K'Wan for the next year. I think the next 2 picks actually address 1-year deals, and we'll talk about them, as we move forward. So I think he's more of a nickelback when it comes to taking over for K'Wan next year. Remember, KK is 30 or 31, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. He signed a 1-year deal. So again, when you do it in the draft, you're able to keep people around who are very cheap, and they're able to fill the roles that you like. So I get this move absolutely too in the 5th round at 172. So yeah, he profiles as a nickelback. I think that's where he's going to be at.
I am trying to find the pronunciation guide on the next pick.
Yeah,
Lenore and Hufonga, I'm assuming.
Yep, close enough.
I'm assuming that's what it is, and I apologize if I butchered that. I just Googled the pronunciation guide. It didn't come up for me like the previous pick, so that's not on deal. So if I'm messing this up, I apologize. Safety, I'm just going to continue to defer to you and what you know on these guys. So safety.
Yeah, he profiles as a box safety. So what you got to remember too is that we're big Jaquiski Tartt fans here. He signed a 1-year deal. Harris and Moore are not under contract next year. So again, it doesn't mean that they're not coming back, either of those guys. It just means that you have to prepare for the worst. Always prepare for the worst and expect the best, especially when he's not going to cost anything because of where you got him in the 5th round. So profiles as a box safety. Feels a little bit more like insurance for Jaquiski Tartt, honestly. And not this year, next year, because I wouldn't imagine him playing over Tarvarius Moore or Marcel Harris just because they have more experience in the scheme. But I feel like that's what he's going to profile as a box safety. So you'll have him as insurance for Tartt just in case, God forbid, he gets injured again as he has in his career. So I like the pick, honestly. It felt like after it got to a certain point, the team just started shoring up certain spots where they don't have guys locked up. So I think that's really a good way to look at it, honestly.
This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do now. Hufonga's Golden Nuggets. His name is pronounced Talanoa Hufonga.
Hufonga.
Grew up on a farm where he and his family looked after goats, cows, chickens, pigs, cats, and dogs. On his farm, they would drive dirt bikes and tractors, but taking care of his goats was always his favorite activity. Quote, growing up on a farm, it's a different kind of childhood. I didn't have neighbor friends to hang out with, he said. On the weekends, it was mandatory that my brother and I were working. We weeded, cleaned the barn, fed the animals, took eggs out of the chicken coop, and maintained the pig pens. And then his last fact comes from a family of football players. His brother, TJ, was a linebacker at Oregon State from 2013 to 14. And cousins Marlon and Thule, I can't say that, are both off defensive linemen at USC. So there's your golden nuggets on Hufonga.
That was good, honestly. Thank you for that.
This is what I'm doing the rest of this, and I apologize. The last one, I don't need a pronunciation guide on this one. It's Elijah Mitchell. And this one raised some hands or raised some arms. A second running back. And I guess my response to that is Kyle Shanahan likes running backs.
I mean, he never drafts running backs 2 in his draft. 2. Okay. It's not all undrafted free agents. Okay. So basically what Elijah Mitchell comps for me is like Raheem Mostert, type of one cut go, super speed, that type, right? And we all know that we love Raheem Mostert, but again, not under contract, 30 years old, right? 29, 30, 29, 30 is when you see things start to, go bad for running backs.
Unless you're Frank Gore.
Unless you're Frank Gore and you're just going to play until you're 800. But
yes,
here's my thing. Do all of these moves indicate that maybe Raheem Mostert might be on the trade block? Now, let me explain, because you don't really get much for a guy who, has bounced around the league and has found success in this scheme and been, has one more year in his contract. But this room feels crowded, right? And we all like Jermichael Hasty and everything as well too, but can you count on him, right? Can you count on all these guys? What do you know for a fact? So I think them getting Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell kind of indicates how they feel about the running back room going forward. And again, there's nothing wrong with depth. But for me, it feels like there's a move to be made here for somebody, because you kind of picked a Raheem Mostert light type player who's very fast like that. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be, it's going to be straight up Trey, Wilson, and Mitchell, 1, 2, 3. That's what it could be if they do find a market for Mostert and they move him to a team that can use him. But I just wonder, I'm just floating that out there. I'm not telling you anything that I know or anything. I'm just floating that out there, the idea of maybe one of these running backs being available, with Raheem Mostert having the most cachet across the league with his name because of what he did in 2019.
I could also see a team being interested in like a Jeff Wilson type. I think all teams should be interested in a, power back like he is, that has the speed to be a good running back as well. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do at the running back position. As I said, I'm not going to offer much on Elijah Mitchell. I would be lying if I told you I knew much about him. But good thing the 49ers website has a portion that says Mitchell's Golden Nuggets.
This is a good one too, and Wayne Gallman. But let me tell you what's different about Wayne Gallman. Wayne Gallman has no guaranteed money. He has to make the roster first. So that's why when people ask me, all right, who's the odd man out? Yes, I just floated out Raheem Mostert because I feel like he has the most trade value, but I would not be shocked if you didn't see Wayne Gallman make this team and get cut. So I think he might just be a camp body at this point. That's the thing that I was really thinking about with him. I think Wayne Gallman's solid. Vince is from New Jersey, just like me. We got a chance to watch him as a Giant. We understand, what he's offered. He's very, very solid. But for me, when you draft and you find all these younger guys who can do a little bit more than he can, then I think that he's the odd man out if we're talking about who's going to get cut. There's no way in the world Raheem Mostert is getting cut. If he gets moved, it's for a trade. But I think Gallman is the odd man out here, even if, I think it's a solid signing across the board.
And also, too, is the rule of the practice squad staying where it doesn't matter how long you've been in the league?
I don't know, honestly.
Because if that stays, Gallman could be, practice squad guy if he so chooses.
So there's Austin Walter too. Who knows if they want to keep Hasty as a practice squatter. So there's going to be, it's interesting. The running back, this is a good problem to have. You have a lot of good running backs on there. So, I mean, this is a really good problem to have when it comes to depth. And it's clear that, like you said, Kyle Shanahan likes running backs.
Yeah. So Mitchell's Golden Nuggets, before we move on to the big undrafted name, I would say. Mm-hmm. Mitchell's Golden Nuggets led his team to a win in the final game of the 2020 season and dedicated the feat to the late Coach Looney, their offensive line coach, who died of a heart attack during an August team workout shortly before the start of the preseason camp. On what would have been Coach Looney's 32nd birthday, Mitchell and the offense ran the ball for 265 rushing yards to cement the victory. Quote, "It was very important to end the season with a win, man," said Mitchell. "We've been through so much with Coach Looney, with just everything to go on," Mitchell said. "And we just put it in our minds that we just wanted this year to be great no matter the circumstances." So there's Mitchell's Golden Nuggets. Gray Fox.
Hold on. Gray Fox.
Appreciate it.
Gray Fox.
Gray Fox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. I appreciate the love for the podcast. That's a lot of money, Gray Fox.
We appreciate you.
We really appreciate you, man. Unbelievable. That like they're gonna meme me for having my health open that entire time, but I thought it said $20.
Yeah, beautiful. Hey, we appreciate it, thank you for the heartfelt apology. I did go undrafted.
Thank you so much. Honestly, that's really love. Honestly, man, that really means a lot. Honestly, wow. I did not expect that at all.
I saw the red box flash up and kept reading. We really appreciate that, Gray Fox.
Thank you. That's very generous of you. Thank you so much. Very humbled and honored. Thank you.
The most fitting way to transition from that, Austin Watkins Jr.
Whoa. All right. Let me plug an article that I wrote on 49ers Goldmine called Got It Out the Mud with Austin Watkins Jr. Let's run down Austin Watkins Jr. Saw him in Mobile. Didn't drop a pass. Was beating everyone. Went on the 4th and Goal podcast with Javi and said, you haven't made it in the league until you got your 3rd contract. When they asked him what was the first thing he was going to do with his football money, was take my mama to a dinner and tell her to quit one of the 3 jobs that she's working right now to put him through everything. The kid ran down his one drop that he had in the entire time that he was in Alabama, Birmingham. One, he knew exactly the play, the time, and what happened with it. This kid, when he said, who do you comp him to? The hands of Michael Thomas, the body of Julio Jones. Look, honestly, man, I know that's a lot to say, but the kid's confidence and the kid's work ethic, you guys are going to love him. I expect him to start right away. And you could take me to the bank on that one. I expect him to start right away at wide receiver 3, barring some sort of signing with Golden Tate or Danny Amendola or something like that at wide receiver 3. Austin Watkins gives this offense an amazing weapon at wide receiver 3. You guys are going to love him, man. I implore you to go look up his tape. Go look it up. Mr. Inferno 818, that's love too, man.
We appreciate
you, bro. Really appreciate the donation, bro.
I once again, we're really falling into the Andrew doesn't know that guy. But actually, I recognize the name. Obviously, I saw him on Javi's podcast. And it falls into the thing of like, hey, I recognize that name. It's probably pretty good. I'm excited. I think the Niners definitely, and maybe this will be a larger conversation on how much they like Austin Watkins, is they didn't draft a receiver.
Nope.
I know we really like Sermon as a receiver. We also like Mitchell as a receiver. Those are both things that they were pretty good at. It's just they must really like Austin Watkins to abstain from drafting a receiver.
Right. And what I mean by starting is at the wide receiver 3 spot. That's Kendrick Bourne's replacement. So, all right. Yes. So let me walk back starter. I mean, like wide receiver 3, top of the depth chart type guy.
Yes, because I picture in my head starting is 2 receivers and the third guy just kind of a rotational.
Correct.
Which isn't a knock, obviously. Yeah, man, I like the pickup. There was a lot of big names that went on draft. Like, I mean, you know me, a Florida State fan. Marvin Wilson was the DL1 at the start of the college season. Or around there. And he went undrafted. He goes to Cleveland, things like that. Austin Watkins, I think, is another name. He's the cousin of Sammy Watkins. So that's good. That's a good thing. He kind of knows what's going on in the league. And also too, do you think, and something I tweeted too, because the analysis on NFL.com said he was a round 4 or 5 pick. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Niners, willingness to not draft a receiver kind of says they think Jalen Hurd might be further along than we think he is? What do you think?
That's a good point. Jesse Rodriguez brings that up. Hurd is said to be on the mend. That's exactly what they were talking about with, at the end of the draft, I think it was the first name that was brought up by John Lynch saying, we really believe that Jalen Hurd is going to be fine. I'm going to hedge that by saying I'm not sure because of the injuries. Yeah. And, again, that's why I'm thinking that Austin Watkins is going to have a role right off the bat. Would I love to see Jalen Hurd? Absolutely. Like I said, when I see Chase Claypool catch a touchdown, I know exactly what the 49ers were trying to do because they want him to be exactly like that. If Jalen Hurd is available to be a wide receiver 3 this year, this offense is even more dynamic. I'm just going to hedge my bets and just hope that, not hope, but we need him to be injury-free. And is it possible that he is? He is, but the history scares me. That's why, with Austin Watkins, I'm so much more bullish on him because he doesn't have those concerns coming out of college.
And maybe even too, the other side, the Niners don't draft an edge rusher, which is a position people thought. Do you think that is a good sign for D Ford?
D Ford, yeah, that's another thing too that they kind of brought up, and they were saying, hey, this is why we didn't draft these guys is because we believe in this and this and this. And hey, look, who knows if that comes to fruition? They got to know better than us. With me, I get nervous about guys that you're trying to rely on who are oft injured and trying to rely on them for a big time role immediately, and that's the part that scares me.
Yeah, so that's the Niners draft. Do you have another name that I forgot? Austin. Hey, The Rock says it's Austin Watkins will be the most electrifying man in this. Come on, man. I'm a big wrestling fan too. It's okay. I'm giving you a hard time.
No,
is there anything else you wanted to touch on about the 2021 NFL draft?
No, I think we're good. Honestly, I think that, a lot of the picks weren't exactly sexy, but when you start to put your mind to it and you start to think about what this team wanted, it was depth. They saw what happened last year. Don't want to go through that again. And they're trying to not make that happen. So, I mean, Again, this draft was great for them because they changed so many things that people thought that they knew about the way they evaluated, quarterbacks and their rosters. So they prioritized depth. They changed their quarterback pick and they drafted running backs. And honestly, man, this team is deep. They're loaded there and they still have room to make moves. Again, Golden Tate is somebody that can be signed. Casey Hayward is somebody that could be signed. These are people that have played in the league and have a ton of experience. So this team is still not done making moves. 49er fans should be very excited about this roster and their prospects going forward. No matter who's the quarterback week 1, this team is loaded, ready to go. As of right now, after the draft, I believe they have the 5th best odds in Vegas to win the Super Bowl. And that is under the assumption that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be starting. So it's good to see other people being bullish on this team because this team is so deep and this roster is so talented. The only thing that can really slow them down is injuries, as we saw last year. And it looks like this team is not going to let it happen because the front office addressed it.
Yeah, and real quick, too, since we talked about Austin Watkins, Josh Peterson, tight end out of Louisiana Monroe, Elijah Sullivan, linebacker out of Kansas, and Justin Hilliard, linebacker out of Ohio State, also undrafted free agents. So the Niners probably shouldn't expect too much more movement. I know you talked about the Golden Tate slot receiver thing. There's probably a few positions the Niners will likely address at this point, but there's not going to be too much more going on. The Niners are pretty much set. And I mean, the good news is, Jason, we made it. The draft is done. We got through it. We did it.
Now what are we going to argue about?
I'm sure I could find something.
I know what the arguments are. Can I start them?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the arguments all offseason are going to be Trey starts day 1.
Yes.
Did the 49ers give up too much?
Yes.
That's it. I mean, there's nothing else that you can really talk about with this team.
I'm trying to think of like a joke one, but I can't.
A joke one? Why didn't they re-sign Jet McKinnon?
Can Trey Sermon run out of the Wildcat productively? Yeah. Which still is a great play call. If McKinnon hits the hole, it's a touchdown. Let's talk about it. No, nobody's ready for that conversation. It's a great play call. Great play call. Oh, yeah. So I guess since we're done about the serious stuff, The Rock says the biggest question now is when the 49ers will sign Pasquini on the practice squad. I don't know if everybody saw my statement. I retired from the NFL and XFL and CFL and Arena Football League and the defunct USFL. Retired from all those. I'm going to try and be an ambidextrous pitcher. There will be no pro days from that.
There will be no
but yeah, no, I announced my retirement probably until next year where I'm really bored. I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it again. Let's run it back. I'm probably just going to do the Brett Favre thing where I retired just to skip training camp, but then unretired and not do training camp. So look out for me signing with a team in August.
Right. Here's a good one. And we'll end on a troll one since you've been trolling me about the Yankees, but you didn't want to let them get any credit for winning the last 3 series and, things like that. Oh. But Gennaro says, book starts over Winston in New Orleans.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, no, that totally could happen. Just Jameis gets traded to here's what's going to happen. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers to the Broncos. Jameis to the Packers. Jameis wins in Lambeau. Boom.
Boom. There you go. Thank you, James, for tuning in.
You can't stop Jameis to Devonta Adams. You can't. That's why I'm going with it. No, Vince, I will check out the Macho Man documentary. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. I appreciate that. Rodgers to Jeopardy. I want Rodgers to Jeopardy. That's what I want. That's my favorite team. I'm a big Jeopardy guy.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, but for real, let's talk about it because this is a big news thing.
Really fast.
Really quick. He has all the leverage. If he retires, do you think Aaron Rodgers regrets anything? No. Nope. So that's why I really think, I know people are joking about it. I really think, if I told you in a week Aaron Rodgers retired because he's going to go do Jeopardy, would you be shocked?
No, and I think that's the most logical thing at this point because I know that they're trying to say that it's Denver, but I just don't think Green Bay's going to trade him. They're both going to dig in and say, we're not budging, and Rodgers is going to be the one that says, I'm out because he has enough money and he's done it.
Yeah, and this is a really bad comparison, I know, but it's nothing like the Deshaun Watson thing before everything came out.
No.
Is Watson's still very young. He still has a lot to do in the league. He's still trying to play. If Aaron Rodgers walks away tomorrow, he's 37. He doesn't need this anymore. So nope. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So there's your Aaron Rodgers talk. Jason, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
Everything was great. I already started looking at where I'm going to stay in Vegas for next year's draft, and oh boy, a year away, and it's super expensive to start already. So I can only imagine that price is going to go up. So no, honestly, I implore anybody who's a football fan, not just a 49er fan, to make your way to a draft experience one time in your life, because it's super fun. You get to really meet a lot of other fan bases. You get to understand how they talk about football. I had a conversation with basically 2 from every single franchise's fan base. And those perspectives are really cool to get. And it was just an amazing experience, man. Cleveland was awesome. A lot of good food, a lot of good parties, a lot of good, conversations. So, anybody who ever wants to get into the experience and anybody who really loves this draft stuff, the draft is where it's at, man. This is a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do it again next year. Hopefully, it'll be an Andrew Pasquini and Jason Aponte pick. Or
yeah, hopefully. Last thought on Cleveland. All the little kids growing up on the skids are going Cleveland rocks. Cleveland, that's a song.
Yes, it is. I know.
There we go. Yeah, Jason Verrett going back to jersey number 2. That's how we are going to wrap up this week's bi-weekly's episode of the Sprint Right Option podcast. We might be here Friday. We might not. We'll see. We'll let you know probably.
Was that a Kyle Shanahan thing?
Who knows if we're streaming on Friday? Because who knows if we're going to be alive come Friday. The reason everybody joins this podcast, the New York Yankees don't play today. I was going to do an update on the score. The Giants don't play either because it's raining. And
Justin, I'm gonna hit you up, man.
Jason's going to hit up Justin. That per sources. That's going to be the end of the episode. Jason Ponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.